Hello, this is Paul Harris from CGS. Today, I'm joined by Jason Stirbinskis, President and CEO of Los Cerros, to talk about its projects in the Middle Cauca Belt in Colombia. Morning, Jason.
Good morning, or good evening in my case.
Excellent. Perhaps start off, let's talk a little bit about how Los Cerros came about, because it's a relatively sort of new company, but born out of a couple of other companies.
Yeah, correct. Los Cerros is the result of the merger of Metminco, which is an Australian listed company, and Andes Resources, which is also Australian, but it's an unlisted company. I was the managing director of that. So that merger essentially reinvented Metminco, the listed company. So it was a new board, new management, new major shareholders, restructured debt, and of course, bringing in a large portfolio of projects in the form of the Andes portfolio, so a significantly enhanced project portfolio as well. Both of those project areas, the Andes project and the former Metminco project called Quinchia, both sit in the Mid-Cauca Porphyry Belt and surrounded by many multi-million ounce discoveries. And those two projects also make a very robust project pipeline. So in the Andes ground, which is a huge portfolio, it's been 90,000 hectares, a lot of that we've never explored. So it's our very early stage sort of blue sky type opportunities there at the one end of the pipeline. And then as we go through, you see we've got some targets that we've developed. Most of those, again, are in the Andes portfolio, some early stage targets generated from soils and geophysics and those sorts of things, which early stage were very exciting. And then move through further through the pipeline, you get to projects that have had some drilling, like El Columpio at the Andes project, Dos Quebradas, Tesorito, Chuscal, and Miraflores in the Quinchia project, and go further on and you get to JORC compliant resources at Dos Quebradas and Miraflores. And then ultimately at the end of that huge pipeline, we have the Miraflores reserve.
Okay, so Miraflores is the flagship project. You've got a resource, you've got a reserve. And in 2017, the company did a feasibility study. And that was, if I remember correctly, a sub $100 million capex. So we're a few years further on. The gold price has gone up considerably. So the economics on the project must be even more attractive now. So what's happening with Miraflores? What's your thoughts there about a potential development?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it our flagship project. I think that doesn't really effectively describe how we view Miraflores. I think calling it a foundation project or a base project is more appropriate. Our focus is on the region, and Miraflores is certainly the base or the foundation of that. And you're right, there's a reserve. There's a 500,000 ounce reserve at $1,400 an ounce, and of course the gold price is much stronger than that now. But at $1,400 an ounce, had an NPV of $90 million, an internal rate of return of 28%. And in today's gold prices, it's far more compelling financials, probably a payback of less than 3 years now. So it's an exciting project in its own right. But as I said, it's a base for us. The activity we have at the moment is in that region. So Chuscal, I mentioned earlier, that's just 2 kilometers away from Miraflores. And between Chuscal and Miraflores is Tesorito, less than 1 kilometre away. And they have the potential to add or enhance the feed that could go into a project based on the Miraflores feasibility study. So that's what we're doing. We're looking to sort of top up that resource and build a regional play using multiple mining sources for a centralised processing hub.
Okay, so if I get that correctly, you've got 500,000 ounces of reserve at Miraflores, and the idea would be through Chuscal and Tesorito to try and get that up, obviously higher, 1 million ounces, something like that. Would that potentially mean you could upsize the potential plant size or throughput rate, or just extend mine life?
Yeah, well, it depends on what we find. In an ideal world, we'll get a boost to the grade in the early years to offset the capital. And like you mentioned, sort of sub 100, and that's right, the capital cost of building the plant of the size we were talking about is well and truly below 100 million. It's more like 70 or so. So with a bit more higher grade from Chuscal or from Tesorito, near surface, easily accessible material, we could see the financial sort of merits of Miraflores greatly improve.
Okay, and with the deal you did for Chuscal, you got AngloGold Ashanti come on board as a shareholder. Does that bring with it access to their geological team, their geological database, things like that can help you, really get a head start on Chuscal and perhaps deepen your knowledge of Tesorito?
Yes, it certainly does. I mean, they've been a great JV partner, and you might have seen a few weeks ago we announced that we've actually signed a term sheet with them to acquire 100% of Chuscal, which makes them a shareholder of Los Cerros rather than a joint venture partner on Chuscal. And they've been very supportive of the work we've been doing at Chuscal and their insights in the region. And of course, we have some geologists on our team that were former AngloGold geologists as well. So yeah, that access to that wealth of knowledge, particularly in that local region, has been very valuable to us.
Okay, so it sounds like there's going to be quite a bit of drilling in your future, both at, there's already been drilling at Tesorito, but Chuscal in particular, I imagine, is going to be one of the main drill targets going forward. What are the drilling plans for the company for the remainder of this year and perhaps going into next year?
Sure. Well, the acquisition of Chuscal was a real sort of game changer for us. That was significantly enhanced the prospectivity of the the Quinchia district, which includes Chuscal and Tesorito and Miraflores and the projects we've been talking about. We got granted title at Chuscal late last year or mid last year, and we drilled straight away. The first time that project's ever been drilled, and the results are really interesting. We've got two styles of mineralization there. We have this sort of overprinting epithermal high-grade veins that we see through the whole area, and we've hit those a couple of times, 35 gram per tonne, 17 gram per tonne, and so on. But in the background is this low-grade porphyry-associated gold through this whole region. And so what we're doing in terms of drilling going forward is to, in the immediate term, sort of at a tactical level, to chase that epithermal vein gold. And you can see now how that ties into this whole Miraflores story. Find some high-grade vein material near the surface, and all of a sudden you've got a boost to the head grade of the first of the early years of a Miraflores feasibility, and the economics become far more compelling. So there's that tactical aspect to it. And then you have the strategy side, which is chasing the porphyry source of all this gold that we see through this whole area, particularly Chuscal, but Tesorito as well, and understanding where all that gold's coming from. And that was one of the key insights coming out of the drilling program that finished in January of this year. And we spent a lot of time assessing that information using pathfinders, signature elements, those sorts of things, and vectoring to see where to go next. And three targets have emerged from all that work, suggesting that we've got a pretty good idea of where those porphyry sources are at Chuscal. So the drilling program going forward has this tactical element, which is this near-surface drilling at Chuscal and at Tesorito as well, with the idea of potentially topping up and ramping into an early, quick, fast tracking of Miraflores development based on this multiple sort of hub idea. And then we've got the deeper drilling, which will be chasing these porphyry targets that have come out of the first program of drilling. But what we also want to do in the immediate future is drill at Tesorito. Now, I mentioned Chuscal is a couple of kilometres away from Miraflores, but between the two of them, or even closer to Miraflores and just 500 metres away or so from the proposed plant site from the feasibility study, is Tesorito, which is a porphyry on the surface. So it's a surface porphyry, and we've intercepted 253 metres at a gram per tonne, 384 metres at a gram per tonne from surface, or close to surface. And that last one hit 2.6% copper near the bottom of that hole. So Tesorito is another compelling target that we certainly want to drill in the near future. So this drilling program coming up, the second half of 2020 drilling program, will no doubt involve Chuscal and Tesorito, possibly Tesorito first because it's such an exciting target, and then moving on to Chuscal in the second half of the program. But we intend to drill both of those this year. The other part of the story, Paul, and I'm sure you're aware of this, is obviously we've seen changes in the administration of Antioquia, and potentially that's going to translate to more granted titles in the area. And we have some targets sitting in some applications in Antioquia in the Andes portfolio that we'd really love to get to and drill. And hopefully we'll see those granted sometime soon, and we can add Andes drilling into our work plan.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Um, how let's talk about, you mentioned sort of fast tracking, the ability to fast track Miraflores. So how do all these sort of three areas sort of tie together? How much do you need to do, or what do you need to see before you can say, okay, now let's put Miraflores, or let's put that area into under development, into production?
Yeah, well, there's three parts to it, Paul. The first is this whole idea of this supplemental feed. We've always had the option of going into small scale production at Miraflores, and it just needs a small boost to the grade, and off we would go. So that's one likely pathway. Drill near surface, easily accessible, good grade material at Tesorito or Chuscal, or maybe we'll even find it at Miraflores, and I'll talk about that in a minute if you like. But that's the sort of the short-term, small-scale production scenario that I think has a pretty short time frame to it, given that the permitting and the engineering for Miraflores is quite advanced. So that's one part of it. The second part is this bigger picture, chasing these porphyry targets in the area at Tesorito, given its proximity to the proposed plant site, and at Chuscal. And of course, if we hit those, we're talking about significant discoveries. We're in the Middle Cauca Porphyry Belt, and we're surrounded by some very, very significant discoveries. So it'd be great if we have one of those on our properties as well. But of course, that's a much different time frame. That's multiple programs of drilling and years on the horizon, rather than potential quick wins out of top-up gold grades feeding Miraflores. And the third, of course, is Andes, but that's not really a short-term target. And Andes is a long-term story, multiple targets, and really we're starting from first principles there. We do have a lot of surface samples. We've taken 14,000 surface samples at Andes, so we know where to start, but we're really starting from first principles there.
Okay, well, the gold market's sort of really catching fire in terms of, got a high gold price. Australian gold miners have been making money hand over fist for a couple of years because of the US dollar, Australian dollar exchange rate. How is the market in Australia for junior explorers such as yourself at the moment?
Yeah, the gold producers have been having a wonderful time of it. Of course, COVID's got in the way of them. They've had to navigate that issue. But in general, I mean, it's been a great environment for them. And we're starting to see that trickle down to selective juniors. I think people are far more selective with where they invest their money in the junior space. And if you've got a compelling story, yeah, you do get some attention. And we're seeing that recently. I mean, our share prices has had a big kick in recent months on the back of announcing the Anglo deal, and we've also done another funding deal with a group called Hong Kong Casino, which essentially gives us a drawdown facility of several $1 million to fund our exploration. So the money's there if you've got a compelling story.
Does that create any sort of pressure for you to focus on that sort of near-term production scenario rather than perhaps playing more of the middle long-term game?
It's a balance. It's a balance between the two. And at this point, both those strategic goals of hunting the porphyries and the quick wins that you could potentially tie into the Miraflores development scenario are both being played out concurrently. And hopefully we'll have a third pathway, which is the Andes work in the future as well.
Excellent. Well, I very much appreciate the update, Jason. Congratulations and good luck, and I look forward to hearing more in the future.
Great. Thank you, Paul.